Today's guest is Nathan Hirsch. He's the founder and CEO of Freeup. It's a marketplace connecting business owners with the top 1% of all virtual assistants, freelancers, and agencies, focusing on e-commerce, digital marketing, web development, and much more. So I'm excited talking to you, kind of hear more about your journey, hear more about Freeup. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, cool. I really like usually starting unpacking some of the backgrounds of the guests we share on the show. I think there's lots of gems and nuggets there. So maybe a good starting point, you can kind of start sharing maybe about your background and slightly what kind of led you maybe into entrepreneurship in general.
Yeah. So my parents were both teachers growing up. So I always grew up with the mentality that I was going to go to school, get a real job, work for 30, 40 years and retire. And that's what they did. They're traveling the world right now. There's nothing wrong with that. But I learned at a young age that that is not at all what I wanted to do. I mean, I worked summer jobs since I was 14, 15 years old. My friends were outside playing. I was inside working 40 hours a week. And I learned a lot about sales and customer service and managing people. But I also learned that I just hated working for others. So when I got to college, I kind of looked at college as a ticking clock. I had 4 years to create a business. And if I didn't do that, I was going to have to go out and get a job and work for 30 years. And that was going to be my life. And I wasn't going to be happy. So I used that money that I had made during the summers to buy people's books. I created a bookstore or a book business competing with my school bookstore. I was pissed off that they would pay people pennies on the dollar. And I created a referral program. And before I knew it, I had lines out the door of people trying to sell me their books, to the point where I actually got a cease and desist letter from my college telling me to knock it off. So that was my first glimpse into being an entrepreneur. And I had sold some books on Amazon. This was back in 2008, before the gurus, before the courses. No one knew what Amazon was. And I thought it was so cool. I could have this 24/7 store that I would just run without me. And I just had to figure out what products to sell. So I started experimenting outside of books. I tried sporting equipment and video games and outdoor supply and computers and stuff that a college guy was into. And I just failed over and over and over. And it wasn't until I branched out of my comfort zone and found the baby product industry, really through trial and error, that my business blew up. So if you can imagine me as a 20-year-old single college guy selling baby products on Amazon, that was me. And I knew very little about e-commerce. Everything was a learning experience. And I'm making this money. I really created dropshipping before I even knew what dropshipping was, years before it was even called dropshipping. And I think I should probably pay taxes. So I meet with an accountant, and the first thing he asked me was, when are you going to hire your first person? And I kind of shrugged him off. Like, why would I do that? That's money out of my pocket. They're going to steal my ideas. They're going to hurt my business. Pretty standard entrepreneurial stuff. And he just laughed in my face. And he said, you're going to learn this lesson on your own. So sure enough, my first busy season comes around, the fourth quarter. I'm not prepared. It's just me. And I just get destroyed. I'm working 20 hours a day. My grades plummet. My social life is gone. And I work my butt off for 6 to 8 weeks to get to January. And when I finally get through busy season, I think, I can never let that happen again. I need to start hiring people. So what do I know about hiring? I post a job on Facebook. This guy in my business law class shoots me a message, says, hey, I need a job. I say, you're hired. Barely interview him. Ends up being an amazing hire. He's smart. He's hardworking. He helps me grow the business. I eventually make him my business partner with the Amazon business. He's co-owner of Freeup now. So there I am as this punk 20-year-old thinking, man, this hiring thing is easy. You post a job on Facebook, someone shows up, you make more money, your job becomes easier. And I just proceed to make bad hire after bad hire after bad hire, learning so much along the way, quickly realizing that hiring college kids in person was not a good long-term plan. I moved to the remote hiring world, the Upworks, the Fivers, hired some really good people who are still with me today. But I also just hated the process. It took me way too long as an entrepreneur to post a job, get 100 applicants, interview them one by one. And I just wanted something better and faster. So 3 years ago, I had the idea to create my own platform, Freeup, where we vet applicants before they can offer their services, where we introduce the clients to people quickly so they don't have to browse, that has 24/7 support on the back end in case people have issues, and a no turnover guarantee where if someone quits, we cover replacement costs because we know how big of a hassle that is. So that's the short, long story of how I went from a broke college kid to starting an Amazon business to eventually the FreeUp marketplace.
Yeah, very many points to touch there from what you shared. One thing which I'm curious, you kind of started saying that in your background, your parents are teachers and they were traveling the world and you didn't want to be like them. What do you mean by this?
So they're traveling the world now. They're retired, but back then they were just teachers. I mean, they were working for someone else. They had summers off. They were middle class family. I mean, the other thing to remember is I went to school, or I lived in East Longmeadow, but I went to school in Longmeadow. My dad was a teacher there, so I got to go to their school system, which was better. And in that school system, or in that town, everyone's parents were doctors, lawyers, dentists, big time business owners. And we weren't poor, but we were just middle class. So growing up, you always want what you don't have. So I think that was a part of it as well. But I always just knew that I would be miserable as a teacher. I'd be miserable just working for someone else. That just wasn't what I wanted to do.
Got it. So you basically had an example of kind of what you didn't want to do from your parents, and you went to the path of entrepreneurship. What led you to start the dropshipping business? Was the first business you ever started?
Yeah, I mean, I got into it because I started with textbooks, and then I got a cease and desist letter from my college, and I had created this Amazon account to sell books, but I couldn't sell books anymore. So I had to figure out what else to sell. And there was no guides or courses or anything like that. It was just trial and error. I mean, I wish I had a better story of how I did all this research and I came across the baby products, but that's not how it happened. I mean, I was just throwing products online and trying to see what would work. And eventually, when I listed baby products, I started getting sales. So I doubled down and listed more and more and more. And before I knew it, I was growing this Amazon baby product business. And the idea of drop shipping, I mean, it wasn't called drop shipping. It came on because of a necessity. I mean, I had no warehouse. I had no money to buy inventory. I couldn't take too much risk. I was a college kid in college debt. And so the concept that I could ship something I didn't have and get it shipped from someone else who made the product and make the difference between what I sold it for and what I bought it for, that was the concept. And only years later did I know that it was called drop shipping.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So when did you actually start FreeUp, like an existing platform where you're vetting VAs? Was it like 3 years ago?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had the Amazon business. We opened up an office down in Florida. We got rid of the office. We went back to entirely remote. And then I started FreeUp as a side business because, I mean, at one point we were doing over $5 million a year on Amazon. And then the market became saturated. Everyone started selling on Amazon. So we were down to 2 to 3 million, and we weren't really growing our brand. It wasn't our products. We were kind of just treading water, hoping that Amazon didn't do anything. And I started FreeUp as a side project. It was towards the end of 2015. We didn't officially launch until 2016, but that business took off. And within a year and a half, we surpassed our Amazon business, and it became a pretty easy decision to really focus on FreeUp and growing that business and growing that brand.
Why did you start FreeUp? Was it your own pain point, or like something which you were trying to solve for yourself, or you just saw an opportunity because of your own experience? Like, what were the motivations, or maybe like reasons you went towards this path?
Yeah, I mean, I kept looking for FreeUp. I mean, I jumped around. I used so many different platforms, so many different marketplaces, and I just wanted something faster. I remember there was one day that I had done 8 hours of interviews, and I didn't find one person that was a good fit for my post. And that was an entire day wasted. And then I had to spend the next day interviewing more people. And I wanted something where I could just tell the marketplace what I wanted, get someone that was already vetted that can get started working right away. And that was the original concept of FreeUp. I mean, people would email me what they need. I would have this Rolodex of freelancers. I would say, here's your graphic designer. And that graphic designer would get started within hours or minutes of putting in a request. And for me, I mean, the pre-vetting is great. We only let on 1 out of every 100 applicants. I mean, I would put our customer service against anyone. I love our no turnover guarantee. But for me, it's about the speed. The time is the one thing that you don't get back as an entrepreneur. So anything you can do to get access to talent faster, to me, that's what separates us. And that's why I built FreeUp.
Interesting. Did you actually nail down the hiring process once you started FreeUp already, or you were still kind of finding the right hiring process of vetting in general? Like, did you figure it out on your end by that time?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I mean, we were 8 years into the Amazon business. So we had come up with a pretty good hiring process. Probably around year 5 is when we mastered it. And not that you ever master it, you're always improving, but we were very confident that the people that got through our vetting process were going to be good fits because we vetted them not just for skill, but for attitude and communication as well. So when we started FreeUp, I had this Rolodex of freelancers that I had used on and off. So I kind of had a starting point of freelancers that I could trust. And then once we maxed out those freelancers, we started getting referrals and posting ads to get applicants. And then we created the FreeUp interview process, which isn't to get hired. It's just to get access to offer your service on our platform. But we created that really around that same hiring process that we had used for our Amazon business.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned you're also pre-vetting people for attitude and communication. So it's actually one of the things I'm also looking when I'm hiring people, but it took me years kind of to get there. In the beginning, I wasn't really looking at it. Is it something that maybe you can like expand on? It's like why it's important and how you're actually checking for attitude and communication on freelancers you're hiring?
For years, I used to vet people just for skill, and I'd hire someone with 5 years of experience. They'd have some great reviews. They'd have a nice resume. And 3 months later, it would blow up in my face. And I'd be there wondering, how is this possible? This guy was so talented. How is he not a good fit? And that's when I realized that skill was just part of the equation. So for skill, we don't need everyone we hire to be a 10 out of 10, right? You can be a 5 out of 10. You can be a 3 out of 10. What we care about is that you're honest about what you can and cannot do, and that you're priced accordingly. So we put people through skill tests. If they're a graphic designer, we look at their portfolio. If they're an Amazon expert, we have Amazon questions. So skill is different, but attitude and communication is the same. We do one-on-one interviews for attitude. We look for people who are passionate about what they do, that aren't just in it for the paycheck, that don't get aggressive the second that something doesn't go their way, that can take feedback without taking it personally. There's a lot of things we look for. And when you're vetting for attitude, you're really not looking for the right answers. You're looking for the red flags. What is this person saying that shows they might not have the type of attitude you want? And communication is everything. I mean, if you and I hire someone and they have a great skill and a great attitude, but we can't communicate with them, it's not going to work out. The skill and the attitude don't matter. So communication is the foundation of the FreeUp platform. We have 15 pages of communication best practices that they have to memorize and get tested on before they get on. And it's stuff like responding within a business day, how to handle emergencies, how to set due dates, how to get on the same page right from the beginning. Obviously, we vet for English and stuff like that. But I mean, communication goes so much more than that. So for us, it's really that trifecta of skill, attitude, communication. And once they're on our platform, we hold them accountable to those things. If they're taking on projects they can't do at a high level, if they're showing signs of a bad attitude, if they're not communicating, we're very quick to remove them or stop them from getting more clients.
What are some of the red flags you're looking, or someone else who is maybe wants to vet their own freelancers, which should tell them like, that's not the right guy to work with?
Yeah, we like to challenge people a little bit during our interview. Maybe imply that we don't think they have the skill that they think they have, or imply that XYZ is difficult, that being on the marketplace is tough. See how people handle adversity a little bit. You get someone you get them a little outside their comfort zone, and you can really understand what they're like. I mean, we put them through a process where they're filling out an application, they're answering questions, they're doing a one-on-one interview, they have our communication best practices. So a lot can change. I mean, people have good days, people have bad days. You want to get the most out of someone to see what they're actually like, not just in the perfect situation. I mean, everyone's warm and fuzzy and nice when things are going well. It's how do you handle when things are not going well? That's how you really tell what a person is.
Mm-hmm. Are there any specific questions which you can use or you love using to test maybe those two things for now, like attitude and communication? I think those are really important. Something I'm personally also looking in when I'm hiring people, are there specific processes or specific questions, like specific tests you're trying to pass someone, or someone listening in can kind of include in their vetting process to improve finding that right guy?
Yeah, and we actually have we have a hiring packet you can get on the FreeUp platform. Even if you don't use FreeUp, it's free. But in that hiring packet, we've got 6 interview questions to ask. So I just pulled it up real quick. One of the first things that we ask is we ask the candidates to rate their skills from 1 to 10. Let's say someone has 4 different skill sets. We want to hear why you think you're an 8, why you think you're a 5, why you think you're a 10. And a lot of times that can tell you a lot about a person. If someone's been doing something for 6 months and they're saying they're a 10 out of 10, or they've been doing something for 4 years and they say they're a 2 out of 10, those are just some basic examples, but you can dig deeper and really understand why someone thinks what they think. Are they a logical person? Are they coming with a backbone, or are they just saying what you want them to hear? So that's just an example. Talking to the freelancer about their commitments, both inside and outside the marketplace, their other clients, how they prioritize things is always a good one. And just another example is what are the qualities that the freelancer cares about? Is it being on time? Are they a perfectionist? Is it just pay? Like what are the things that they care about in a marketplace, in a platform, in a client? For me, that's just a great way to really understand what a person's primary goals are.
Interesting. Maybe share how should someone think about vetting maybe a VA as a process, maybe a goal. Someone is looking for a specific freelancer. How should someone even think about finding this right guy, like pre-vetting process, like how maybe someone listening in can approach this whole process?
Yeah, so this is how I go about it. The first thing I do is figure out what my budget is. I figure out, okay, I made X amount of money last month, and this is how aggressive or conservative I want to be. If I want to be really aggressive, can you hear me okay? It's kind of cutting in and out.
Yeah, I can hear you okay on my end.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
so the first thing that we do is you figure out the budget, how aggressive you want to be with the money that you want to invest. So if you want to be super aggressive, maybe it's 40 to 60% of your profits go back into the business. If you want to be more conservative, maybe it's 10 to 30%, but figure out what that percentage is. You can always make it go up or go down month to month, but have a good understanding, because the last thing you want to do is hire someone you can't really afford or wish you hired more people. Figure out what that is. The next step is to create 2 lists. The first list is everything you do on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. Now, you want to prioritize that list with things that take up the most of your time, that are easy and that you do not like doing. Those go at the top of your list. The goal is to get your time back. The second list is everything you're not good at. What are the tasks that you're doing every month that are outside of your core competencies? The average entrepreneur only has 1 to 3 things that they're really good at. So you have your budget, you have these lists, and then you can start chipping away at it. And the next step is figuring out what your perfect person looks like. Is it a full-time employee in your office? Is it a virtual assistant in the Philippines? Is it a part-time freelancer? Is it project-based? What kind of person do you work well with? What kind of skills do they have to have? What kind of hourly rate? Stuff like that. So you've got the list, you've got identifying what that perfect person looks like. Then you've got the interviewing for the skill, the attitude, and the communication that we just talked about. And there's some steps afterwards that we can go into, like setting expectations and the feedback loop. But that's really the starting point, is figure out your budget, figure out what you want to take off your plate, figure out what the perfect person looks like, and then you can start interviewing for that trifecta.
So how do you set up expectations? Like, do you use any specific method? I think it's a great transition into this question.
Yeah, so we have a client expectations doc that you can get right inside the hiring packet, and it really lays it out. You lay out what your business is like, what constitutes success, what constitutes failure, what are your pet peeves as a business owner. I mean, one of my pet peeves for my VAs is if they say, "Hey, Nate," and they don't tell me the information, I have to ask or pull the information out of them. I want them to give me all that information up front, because I have a lot of people messaging me all day, but how would they know that if I didn't set that expectation? It could be a due date and a due time. It could be how many revisions are in that project. Really getting 100% on the same page, so everything is black and white, the last thing you want to do is turn into a he said, she said down the line. And the other tip that I'll give with expectations is I like to scare people a little bit. And scare probably isn't the right word.
How do you scare them?
I want them to know what they're getting into. I want them to know that we have very high expectations before they start working with my business, that we're going to hold them accountable, and that we don't work with people that don't hit the expectations. We don't work with people who miss due dates or who don't communicate or stuff like that. So I would much rather that someone hears my expectations and then backs out before we start working together than to just say, oh, I can do it, and then 2 months later we have an issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Do you do it for like a video call like we're having right now? Are you doing it via text? What do you find is the best way to actually set those expectations? Like, because I'm guessing most people like which are on your platform, people are hiring, are working remotely as well. Yeah.
Right. It's funny. I actually don't do any video chats with any of my freelancers or virtual assistants. I'll do phone calls with my business partner. Here and there, I might do a call with a US freelancer or US agency, but not often. I like to do everything via email or everything via Skype. If it's a conversation or an interview or setting expectations, it's Skype. If it's just like a notification or an update, it's an email. And the reason being is I like to get everything in writing. I'm working with people all around the world with different cultures, maybe even different internets that could cut in and out when we're talking on a video. I want everything to be in writing. I want to have something that we can go back to reference, that I can make sure they really understand. If you are going to do video or phone call, there's nothing wrong with that. It's more of a personal preference from my side. But at the end of it, write up an email and have them with everything you talked about and have them confirm it. Don't move forward without getting everything in writing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And you're expecting everyone you're learning to write your confirmation. We've understood going to be very expected for the role, for the things you talked about, and only then you correctly kind of move forward as a step in the hiring process.
Sorry, you cut out. I didn't really hear you.
Yeah, I'll repeat. So I'm saying like it's using any freelancer you're hiring to write to you an email, summarizing the expectations and summarizing everything you said to see if they're fine. And if they're not, you think like this guy may be a fit?
So I'll be the one that writes the email. If let's say I have a phone call with a freelancer, let's say that it's a freelancer that's writing for our blog and it's kind of a complicated situation or issue and I don't want to type it all out. I'll have a phone call with them, but then at the end of the phone call, I'll say, hey, I just want to confirm that we're on the same page, that going forward, you'll hit every due date. And I'll just have them confirm it. That way there's something in writing. So 2 months later, we don't just say, oh, remember that phone call from 2 months ago? And each of us don't even barely remember it because we have a lot of other things going on. So I personally don't do that. I keep everything in writing on Skype as much as I possibly can, 99.9% of the time. But if I do have to have a phone call with someone, then I'll make sure that I at least get some part of it in writing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Are you looking for specific countries, like in your platform where you can recommend people to look for specific markets? So for example, you have American people or Canadian, which naturally will be more expensive versus cheaper markets like Philippines, the Indians. Are you having the bias against the market, or are you really measuring every freelancer as an individual?
Individual. I mean, we get about 3,000 applicants a week from all over the world. We're right now, the platform's about 40% US, 40% Philippines, and 20% scattered. But I mean, we accept people from all over. I mean, the only thing that I'll say is like, we probably won't accept like US data entry people because US people tend to be 20 plus more per hour. And no one's going to pay $25 an hour for a data entry person when they'll get somewhere in the Philippines for $5. But I mean, that usually doesn't happen either. Most US freelancers that are applying are specialists or high level experts. So, I mean, there's only kind of bias in that way, only within reason. But outside of that, I mean, we accept people from all over with different price points and different skill sets.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And do you find the qualities of people that overseas are lower than people working Americans for stuff which is not, let's say, inserting data, or you don't really like find it? I'm just curious because it's something I think about as an entrepreneur many times when I need people. I want the best people. And sometimes I'm not really sure if I should hire someone, for example, from maybe the Philippines or the India, which I've been hiring a lot. And I'm naturally sometimes inclining more for Europeans and Americans. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I personally love hiring people from the Philippines. I just had a lot of really good experiences there. I've kind of built up a network there. I get a lot of referrals there. So like my customer service team, my billing team, my success team is from the Philippines. Now, I have people from all over that do social media and video editing, and I have US people that do our blog and our Facebook ads. So it's subject to change, but for me, day-to-day operations, Philippines is probably my first choice, only because I have a lot of experience there. And I've also learned as a manager, as a leader, as someone who's always trying to improve and get better, I've learned how to communicate with people in the Philippines. It wasn't easy. I didn't do it on day one, but I've gotten better at that. So because of that, I tend to work better with people in the Philippines because I had that experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. What about onboarding? Let's say you are finding someone where you're hiring, using the platform Upwork, you're finding a freelancer. Do you have any onboarding tips, like things you think you should do besides kind of what we chatted to kind of onboard him to your team, your processes, to besides the expectations? Or what are some of the things you're doing on that topic?
Yeah, so it's different if you're hiring a virtual assistant, a freelancer, or an agency. If you're hiring a freelancer or an agency, you're going to provide information about your business. The more information you provide, the better. And then you're going to identify the scope of the project, get on the same page. And that scope includes the due dates, the due times. It's not due next Tuesday. It's due next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And you're also going to include any types of revisions. You want to give feedback. You want to make sure that you put them in position to succeed, keeping in mind that you're one of many of their clients, and the way that one of their other clients likes it might not be the same way that you like it. So you have to set those expectations and give feedback. Now, when you're hiring a virtual assistant, yes, you want to provide information with your company and the expectations that we talked about before, but there's also SOPs that I recommend that you have. And those SOPs are the day-to-day operations of your business. If you don't have SOPs or how to do this or A, B, C, D, the actual steps, you're not ready to hire a virtual assistant. You need to build those out, at least a rough draft and a starting point before you hire.
Mm-hmm. Are you using any tools to create the SOPs or really anything else which you love using with freelancers?
I'm very simple. I use Skype, I use Trello, I use Google Docs. And for developers, I use a program called Jira, which they really like for organizing projects. So that's really all I use. I keep everything in Google Docs and Google folders, and that works really well for me. I know some of my clients use Asana or Airtable. There's lots of different tools there, but for me, I like to practice what I preach. And one of the things I preach is just keeping it very simple.
I think to may start complicated since you have more and more tools actually today. Are you using Slack to communicate with them, or are you really keeping everything to Skype?
I personally use Skype. That's been a tool that I love. I use it back in Amazon. It's free. It's easy. I have group chats. So I have a group chat with my customer service team. I have a group chat with my billing team, and it's all there. It's all nice, easy, and organized. I haven't used Slack.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What are some mistakes which you notice people do in general when it comes to outsourcing and kind of hiring freelancers? Are there some things which you notice more people are inclined to do more often than not?
Sorry, you cut out. I didn't hear you there.
I was saying, like, are there any mistakes more often than not when it comes to outsourcing and hiring those people like freelancers and VAs, which you usually hire online?
Yeah. So back in the day, one of my biggest mistakes, I hired a manager of the day, and I spent 6 months teaching him how to do everything, every part of the business, customer service, listings, filling orders. And at the end, it was great. He had my entire business under control. I could sleep better at night. The business ran without me. And I went on my first vacation in probably a year. And on the first day of my vacation, he quit on me. So 6 months of training down the drain. And I think that's a very valuable lesson. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs, hiring is hard. So they make some bad hires and they finally find a VA they like. And then they load that person up with everything. but it makes your business incredibly risky. You've got to diversify. You've got to hire different people for different things. You've got to build out separate teams. So if someone quits or someone gets sick or they get a new job, you can just plug and replace that one person without having to teach them the entire business.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I think what you're saying, it really comes down back to having really good documentation. So it will be very easy to replace someone in case that happens. And that person may do their job better, I guess. How are you putting on making sure the freelancers update the documentation or having this really documentation of the protocols and really anything else needed for the position?
Sorry, you really cut out there. I didn't hear anything you just said.
It goes out, but I was asking, like, how important do you think is documentation when it comes to the product? And how often do you ask a freelancer to update and have this ongoing documentation up to date?
I do it a lot. I mean, I'm at the point now where I don't have time to write SOPs for every single team, every single process. So I created a rough draft back in the day, and I make it the responsibility of the freelancer, of the virtual assistant, to keep that document up to date. And I'll check in with them and I'll make sure that they are. And processes are always changing. We're always coming up with new ideas, new things we want to implement, new things we want to try out. And so they know that when we change something, it's their responsibility to update the documents.
Mm-hmm. All right, fair enough. Something I'm curious about here, I think I'm sometimes, I guess, battling with is hiring really good people, much more money to the team versus hiring more people, which may be still with a lower budget or just in general less skilled. So what do you think about like those two, and which approach you like, or maybe which approach you can recommend to people?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I like to say there's 3 different levels that you can hire: basic, mid, and expert. So a basic level freelancer, they're followers. If you have your systems and process in place, they're $5 to $10 an hour, non-US, they might have years of experience, but they're there to follow your process. And the better your process is, the less you can pay. Then you've got the mid-level, so the specialists, the graphic designers, the bookkeepers, the writers. They're not consulting with you. They're not following your process. They're doers. So for projects that build up, things that are outside your core competency, you're going to hire the doers to take these things off your plate. And then you got the experts, the 20 and up, high-level freelancers, consultants, agencies. You're hiring them to bring their own strategy and their own expertise to the table. So you have to sit down as a business owner and say, hey, am I stuck in the day-to-day operations and I need to get my time back? Am I doing projects that are outside of my core competency, or are projects building up? Or am I taking on something new that I don't have time to master, that I need to hire an expert to come in and bring their strategy? So for me, it's about that. And then from there, you can make decisions of, hey, do I want to learn it myself and create a process, or do I want to hire an expert to come in with his own process? Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I do want to go back a bit just to hear just a bit more about your journey with FreeUp and kind of where you guys are today. So I'm going to go back just a bit, just maybe to the beginning. So when you guys launched FreeUp, how was the response right away? Like, I'm just curious, like, people had this need and jumped and saw your system right away. Like, how was it maybe at the beginning?
Yeah, great question. The first reaction was, oh, great, another freelancer marketplace. That's what we all need.
Yeah, we have so much of those. Yeah,
exactly. So that was the first one. And then we were fortunate enough that people gave us a chance, and the people liked our speed, and they started telling other people. We created a referral program, and then the word got out. So it definitely took a few months of getting people to realize, hey, we're different. This is why we're different. This is our value proposition. But at first it was like, oh, great, another outsourcing company, another VA place.
How did you guys go to market? Like, did you have any specific marketing plan? Like, how did you start finding your first customers when you launched? Since you're, again, as you said, potential, like, with different flavors, different marketplaces at the time and to this day.
Yeah. So, I mean, we launched with a very minimum viable product. We had a software that we spent a little time building. People could clock in, they could clock out. Clients could see their freelancers on their side, and that's it. It didn't do anything else. People would have to email us what the freelancers they want. All the billing was very manual, and we've since invested a lot in our software, and it's way better. But we launched with almost nothing, and we wanted feedback. We wanted We wanted people to tell us what they liked and what they didn't like. So we convinced some Amazon sellers to give us a shot right from the beginning and try it out. And we gave them some like discounted rates and some free credit. And they really liked the service. And they also gave us feedback on what they liked or what they didn't like or how we can improve. And we really developed from there. So that's really how we started it and got to market.
Uh-huh. Interesting. And in those 3 years, do you have a specific like moment where there's something or a specific time frame where the business really started changing or really started growing from there, like something which enabled you to kind of push the business along in this period?
Yeah, I mean, two things that got us off the ground was our referral program. So we set it up so you get 50 cents for every hour that we build to people that come from you forever. And we paid out over $300,000 last year in referral money. So people really liked that. Influencers wanted to promote us. And then the other thing was podcasts, just getting on podcasts, sharing our story, sharing what problems we had and what our solution was. And that was a quick way to just get in front of thousands and thousands of people at once. So those two things was really how we marketed FreeeuP for the first year and a half and how we got it off the ground.
Interesting. So you would say this was like the 2080, which you guys focused on, which really allowed you to get the results marketing wise.
Exactly.
Interesting. Cool. Where are you guys at right now, and where do you see FreeeuP going in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, we grew FreeeuP from a $5,000 investment to $1 million to $5 million to $9 million last year. So I'm really excited. I mean, we have a lot of great updates, a new software that makes everything look way better, is way easier. We launched our new agency program, so we now have agencies on the platform that you can hire. We've gone from just Amazon and e-commerce to marketing, and marketing kind of trickles into all other online businesses. So for us, it's all about expanding and getting in front of more business owners. And I'm kind of excited to see how far we can push this thing.
Cool. What do you think is the difference? I'll put the question in a different way. What should people look for in agencies and freelancers? Like I, for example, personally sometimes don't like working with agencies. Maybe it's a personal bias of mine, and I'm kind of going for freelancers because I feel sometimes agencies is more like a mercenary versus someone is a visionary who can join your vision. What do you think, like if someone when should someone maybe hire an agency and when you should hire a freelancer? What do you think about it?
Yeah, so agencies are great if you want something that's scalable. So let's say you have a business and if you hire one person, eventually it's too much work for one person. So you got to hire a second and a third. Or an agency, you get someone that has their own system, their own process, and they're scalable. They can handle big level tasks, lower level tasks. It's kind of that all-in-one package. There's no right or wrong. There's pros and cons. The pro to hiring one person is that you're kind of get this dedicated person that you can invest in, but it's also risky if they quit on you. Yes, maybe you save money because you didn't pay agency prices, but if they quit on you, you have to start all over. Agencies, they rarely quit on clients. They're usually there for the long term. They're more scalable. You're paying a little bit more, but you're also getting their systems, their processes, their structure. And we tend to work with smaller agencies, 5 to 10 person agencies. So for us, we don't look at one's right or one's wrong. It's more the pros and cons and what the client wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Why not work with bigger agencies? You find that it's too much people and it's not good? Is there any specific reasons to work with small ones?
So, I mean, we just launched the agency program, so we might open it up to bigger agencies. For us, we didn't want to launch the program and say, oh, here's a 100-person agency and not have any sense of quality control. So, I mean, there are agencies that do a fantastic job that are bigger and that can hold that quality control, even though they hire a lot of people. But there's also a lot of agencies that struggle with that. So we want to start small. We want to show that we care, that someone's still going to get that same customer support that they get by hiring a freelancer, but they get the agency that's more scalable. And like I said, we may open it up to bigger and bigger agencies as well.
Mm-hmm. Something I'm curious about the hiring process is I personally, for example, when I vet people myself, and in the process, I always I'll make a person read a book for 1 hour. And if they don't want to read a book, I don't hire them because I like reading personally. I value reading highly. What do you think about it, like as a pre-vetting process? And do you do anything similar in terms of like seeing who likes to learn or making people read things?
I mean, we have a 50-page SOP that they have to read the first week. So that's probably the closest that we do. In our Amazon business, my business partner used to do something similar where he would assign books to people. We kind of got rid of that. I don't necessarily think it's right or wrong. For us, we've kind of focused on, hey, this is what we want you to learn. I don't know. I think it's probably a good strategy long-term. I mean, we both know that reading leads to a lot of change and knowledge, but it's not something that we personally implement today. You can only force so much on people.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What do you do with your Amazon business? I mean, since you kind of started growing Freeup and you had the business, what ended up being with that business?
We transferred it over to our third partner. So, I mean, it was a dropshipping business. There's not much to sell. We didn't have inventory. We didn't have patents or trademarks. So it wasn't a high value business towards the end. I mean, should we have sold earlier? Maybe. But again, dropshipping business, very tough to sell. People want FBA businesses with an actual brand and a product line. But yeah, I mean, we really just got out of it and focused towards Freeup.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So you think the fact you went all in with Freeup and focused just on this one project is one of the reasons which helped you scale the business in the last 3 years?
Definitely. I mean, so we spent about a year and a half, maybe more doing both. And once we decided to stop doing that and focus on Freeup, that's when Freeup started to explode. And even just my business partner. So when we both kind of realized we didn't want to do Amazon forever. So I started Freeup. He was part-time with Freeup. He started his own little business and he was doing Amazon, and he was trying to making some life decisions on what he wanted to do. And once Freeup started to gain momentum, he dropped the other two and went all in with Freeup. So when we went from both of us doing it part-time to both of us doing it full-time and making our full attention, that's when Freeup really started to explode.
Yeah. It's something I noticed again and again with great companies which scale. They put all their energies on one thing. And I think it's a mistake, like sometimes entrepreneurs do, having juggling many balls basically between many businesses. Yeah. Sounds like that's one of the things that help you.
Exactly.
Cool. So for people listening in, who do you think Freeup is right to? Like if someone listening in and they thinking of trying a platform, like who is the right person who should go ahead and really give you guys a shot and go and try to prove it? Is there specific people who you think are more better to try it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a newer person that's never hired before, I mean, we make it easier for you. If you're a bigger seller that's done this for a while, where time is the asset and you don't have time to go through 50 applicants. I mean, we work with a lot of bigger sellers that can just email us what they need and we introduce them quickly. So we kind of tailor towards all businesses. I think our sweet spot is probably in that 1 to 5 million range, but we have lots of businesses that are more or less. And we put out a lot of great content just to help people, no matter where they are in the process. We have our YouTube channel, our blog, our new podcast, Outsourcing and Scaling. So yeah, I mean, any business can take advantage of hiring remote now. That's kind of the beauty of the world that we live in.
Do you think remote is going to continue growing in the coming years and people working remotely?
Definitely. I think they predict that over 50% of the workforce is going to be remote at one point. So I definitely see it going up and up.
Interesting. Nathan, I think we're getting close to the end of the show. Where can people find you online and where people can go to kind of try Freeup as well? That's the platform.
Yeah, go to freeup.com with 3 E's. My calendar is right at the top. You can book a free meeting with me, create an account, mention this podcast, get a $25 credit to try us out. And yeah, we look forward to working with you. All you do is create a free account, click request a freelancer, tell us what you need, and we introduce you to someone quickly. You can interview them, make sure you like them. You can hire them, negotiate rate, agree to fixed price. If you don't like them, you can click pass and provide us feedback. And we really want it to be a fast and efficient process and a way for you to get access to fast talent.
Cool. All right. Well, Nathan, thank you very much for coming on the show and kind of sharing bits of your journey with Freeup and also lots of hiring and onboarding and pre-vetting tips for people listening in. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Take care.